सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.
Bhakti presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti Recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome. Bhakti presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti Recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome. Hello, hello, hello. Lauren. Got a special guest today. Hi. Got a really special guest today. Her name is Lauren Richardson. Forgive me if we have, there might be one or two challenges during this podcast. The first is that here in Germany, the network, our internet is really poor. And the second is that Lauren has a rogue cat running around who's trying to sabotage our podcast.
Yes, and also very relevant, possibly high on catnip. So
yes, okay. So high on cat, not in recovery.
No, she needs a meeting. She needs a meeting.
Okay, she needs a meeting. So she's in the right place. All right. So Lauren is a Bhakti Recovery Group member. She has a wonderful story. I love it when she's at meetings. She is a yoga teacher. She what is it in English? Beats on. She offers yin yoga and meditation. Sorry, I'm trying to. And she is also a recovery coach. And most importantly, or two most importantly things, a Bhakti yogi and a mom. So,
I love that you remembered that. I mean, seriously, mother is my central role for sure. That's number one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So important. So we've talked in the past, and we frequent Bhakti Recovery Group meetings together. And I love your story, and let me just start by asking you, how is your recovery? What is your process right now? Like, how are you going through this? Like what is, what I
mean? Yeah. I love it. Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Jiva. It's been a really kind of like divine arrangement. I think that I've stumbled upon Bhakti Recovery Group, and we've made this kind of connection, building this friendship. Obviously, too, I think when we meet people in recovery, it's sort of like we're war buddies. So it's like we know, even wordlessly, a lot of the lived experiences that we've had. So I mean,
that's interesting. That's really interesting. I find that too with a lot of people, like-minded people, sometimes need words, right?
Yeah, right.
It's
I mean, and we talk a little bit about that in meetings, how we get, we've spent a lot of time in isolation, or, we've spent a lot of time behind the masks that we wear. You're glitching a little bit. Are we good with the Wi-Fi?
Well, you know what I do? I'll just turn my video off, which is kind of annoying because we don't see each other. So,
okay. Well, maybe you need to, just for the sake of, well, then I have your photo though. It's lovely.
Not a bad photo, huh? It's
a few years ago. One. It's pretty.
A couple less wrinkles on my face.
Yeah. So, but what really prompted me to get into Bhakti Recovery, back to the question of how's my recovery? What am I doing? It's like, whoa, that's so layered at this point. Because I've been in recovery a really long time. Grateful for that. And it also took me a really long time to get in recovery. So we'll talk about a little bit of that too. But Bhakti Recovery Group, it felt like found me right when I needed a new layer of recovery. what's kind of present in my life right now is that I went through a divorce last year. I mean, that was a couple years coming. I'd say the pandemic sort of like came in and just washed everything away that was my life. And I mean, intentionally, I made most of these choices, but ultimately
it's still tough. Even though you made choices, it's still tough.
It's incredibly hard. But what I've discovering is that it's much more difficult in my experience to stay stuck in the suffering place than it is to move forward in faith. And maybe you're not sure where you're going, but at least I'm intentionally participating in my life now. I'm not on autopilot. So what I would say is, like, prior to the pandemic, if you asked me if I was happy, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, I had become a yoga teacher at that point. I had gotten sober. Those two things really coincided. But I hadn't really gotten into bhakti just yet at that point.
So what 12-step program were you going to? Were you going to AA or?
So here's the thing, if we can go backwards just a teeny bit, is that the first, I mean, I probably knew I had a problem way back. I think that that's a pretty common thing. I knew I had a problem way before I considered it. But also the language, the narrative, what was out there around what alcoholics were, it pretty much was just AA at the time. Like, I would say in 2015, maybe, was my first time stepping foot into a meeting. And I wasn't ready. I was not ready.
I think
but
most of us have experienced that. Yeah.
But the cool thing though, Jiva, is that I was actually already delving into therapy. So really my recovery deeply began in therapy.
That's so great. I love that. I love it that, I love to hear this is why we're here. I don't want to hear just regular old, I mean, everyone has their path. And it doesn't always have to be that classic AA path or that classic 12-step path or that classic whatever. It's so individual. And that's why this door is so wide open. So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, please interject anytime. No, I agree. And I'm glad. I mean, we can have different philosophies about lots of things, and that's fine. But that's a similar philosophy to mine. Is at the time, though, I don't know that I'd have really heard anything else besides AA. It was like, AA is the only way. And there's probably still people that believe that. There's really hardcore AAers. It's interesting because there's a lot of dogma there, right? For me, that's what it feels like. And I got a religious trauma. We're going to touch on that a little too. So
we got to get into that.
Well, definitely. Yes. I mean, all of my life is basically all about like finding, I mean, I feel like from a very young age, I've been asking big questions. I've been wondering who I am and why I'm here. And what I was being presented just didn't fit. It was like one thing and then another, but let's go back to the AA thing, which is that I went to a meeting, but I was already in a group. So I was in a therapy group. I was seeing a therapist, and this therapist actually really was special in that he put groups of people, his clients, he would put in small groups together. And it wasn't just like we went and talked, which was great. Meetings are great. You kind of talk, but I actually was doing experiential work, which looked like writing letters to my perpetrators. And writing letters around my traumatic experiences.
Wow. How was that?
Heavy. I'm assuming you can cuss. Heavy as fuck.
Yeah, you can definitely curse.
Really,
I love how the people
really
from the South say cuss.
Yeah, kiss. I'm in Tennessee, by the way, so I've definitely.
I know, I love that.
I'm a California-born girl, so weird. I mean, I've actually also identified my dharmic type as the outsider. So for sure, I feel like I came into this world being like, I have questions. I have a lot of questions.
Tenifornia. Yes. Tennessee, California. Anyway.
Yeah, California. Yeah, I'm whatever. I definitely never really fit into the LA scene, that's for sure. So, but I don't really fit in the Southern scene either. So it's interesting. That sense of belonging, I think, is also a key topic for me in my recovery, is that I've just never felt like I belonged. I never felt like I belonged in my family. I really, really wanted to embrace my religion. I know we kind of jumped away from the AA thing, but just let's say, like, or we were talking about my therapy group. Let's go back to that really quickly, is that
Yes.
that was intense and important for my journey. It's not necessarily, like you said, everybody has a different way to heal. Everyone has a different path. I actually went and looked at a lot of, like, I dug up a lot of really dark things, brought them to the surface. I did it in a safe setting with people who were holding me. And it was right for me, but it may not be the way everyone heals. And so quickly, also probably a good time to say that I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, which really informs my story a lot too, and really needs to be named. And my perpetrator was my biological father, who was in my life. I mean, my upbringing just quickly was, looked pretty good on the outside, is what I would say. Like, it looked like my parents were educated. They were Seventh-day Adventist. So that's a religion we'll discuss just a little bit, but, practicing, they had faith. They said that, but it's like, again, it was like I was in this household that really, I think their priority and focus was what things looked like. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a common diseased way of thinking in this world. What is it going to look like on the outside?
I have so much compassion for them at this point because, well, first of all, as a bhakta now, I just have this understanding that's so much bigger and perspective of, like, their souls on this journey as well. That doesn't come easy though. Anybody that's listening that may be, a sexual abuse survivor, have a family member who was their perpetrator, like, talk about Bhagavad Gita stuff, like when I first heard about Arjuna having to kill his kinsman, I was like, oh shit, like, I deeply relate to this. Like, this is so relatable, relatable.
Yeah.
It really,
I mean, even if you take it as like a literal thing that happened, or just something figuratively,
exactly,
as far as the struggle that you have with your own personal attachments, with forgiveness, with love, with fate, destiny, with karma, all of it, it all relates. You can just, and if people like you and I and so many others can take the dogma out of stuff like that, it's so relatable. So relatable.
Yeah, but it takes a while to deconstruct stuff, so I know that to be true. And I know that you can't just, I can't just bring this awakening I've had and this kind of, like, I've gone into the dark to get that light, and that's why I realize it's my calling, I feel, to kind of help people do that. But not everybody is ready for that. Not everybody's going to do it in the same way. But it's really important for me to talk about my childhood sexual abuse, because I know people listening will have experienced that as well. Like, you're going to have listeners who will hear my story and will relate, maybe even their own fathers, which is, by the way, the hardest perpetrator to have, especially given,
are you saying that from your own experience, or are you saying that is
what
that
I've,
like statistically, like,
well, I've read this, I guess,
there's
probably all kinds of,
that's fine.
But no, I have read that's, I guess maybe a better, more scientific way to say is that some people have come to the understanding or belief that it is the most difficult perpetrator for a woman to heal from.
Yeah,
I see that. It's biological. It's survive. The fact that he is so intertwined with my survival, as well as, the first godlike figure of my life, as we know, both parents are your gods, and so not surprising that I couldn't quite embrace my religion, because that was I've got this father and mother, and I love them. So it's kind of crazy. I think that's also the other thing, is like, that's relatable with maybe Arjuna, or just the concept of, like, just the concept that you can love your family and also, like, call them on their shit, like, and give yourself permission to really become who you're meant to be. And sometimes our family is what keeps us from doing that. Right. Very often. And I do believe we live in a very codependently trained society, where it's like, you gotta post the family, and you gotta, just kind of get in line. And the educational system we mostly engage in is all just like about fitting into a box, and it's such a relief to discover the concept of dharma for me. The concept that we all have intrinsic purpose is just, what a relief, because I love to say, I feel like I reached my adult years not really, like I missed my orientation day. Like, when you go to college and I like missed it. And I felt like I looked around and everybody
That's a
was
good way of,
like everyone knew what class to go to or where they were headed. And I was like, I got fucking no clue. I mean, that's definitely when I started to use, I would say that's when really I started to use, which is
how old were you when you started to, I would say, numb yourself or use?
Well, so there's a little kind of side story, I think, to that's important with, obviously the religious trauma, the spiritual abuse of being sexually abused by a father, the emotional
sexually abused by a father who is also a religious figure, which is tied in with all of that.
100%. I mean,
that is very hard to detangle, is it not? It is very hard to get through that and detangle that and separate what is God,
serious trust issues with men.
Yeah, like what is God? What is religion? What is spirituality? Who are men? Who is my father? What is sex? I mean, that is some serious.
How am I even safe?
Web.
Never felt safe. I think that's the thing.
Sticky web.
The more that I have recovered, the more I realize just how much fear I've lived in as well.
Yeah.
So constant fear, because, your father is the person that's supposed to protect you. And when they fail to do that, like that's serious, huge abuse, huge abuse, huge betrayal.
And it's also, I guess I'm going to ask you this because this experience was not my experience. I was not abused by my father in that way. So, so it's kind of like, was it like for you, such a double message? It's like, okay, he's a great father, and then he loves me. He cared for us. I don't know if you have brothers and sisters, but
he did. I had an older brother, wonderful older brother. Yeah.
Okay, so you have brother, and he cared for the children, and
he showed up. He was in my life.
And he was a good husband, I imagine, and a religious man.
Good. Yeah.
And at the same time, he's doing something to you, which you absolutely. How old were you when it started? Just so that I can put this into perspective.
Important. I mean, I was very young. It was 5 is the memory that I have. Of course, memories are vague when you're little, and I have some suppressed ones earlier. Some people don't even have memories. So that's another side topic, is how much you can suppress that type of stuff and repress it so that you're not even aware it happened to you until much, much later.
Right.
And I used to wish that was my experience, because remembering is painful, and I definitely stuffed it way down. So the time period, I was kindergarten till around 10 years old.
So it was really like throughout your whole developmental,
very formative.
Emotionally. Yes. I mean, that's like the emotional development of a child right there up until you're 15. That's like the biggest, and when you're having those mixed messages and it's just.
Yeah. Wow. It's so confusing. I mean, honestly, actually, the sad kind of sick sounding thing is, at first you think it's normal because you don't have any reference.
Sure.
So for a while, like at 5, 6, 7, but then I do remember having these questions of like, do other daddies do this? It was definitely like, and then I started hearing education about perpetrators and then you start put 2 and 2 together, and you're like, well, that's what's happening to me, and how dark to realize that at like 8 or 9 years old. I started journaling at that age. And so I actually really believe there's a correlation with that, that I never talked about it in my journal, but I started to write in a journal from the time I was like able to put phonetic sentences together.
But that's really a big part of your recovery, as I heard from your story, that
we'll talk about that, because now I use tools like that for people now.
I know you do.
Yay, full circle. Yeah, it's so much joy when you can find your purpose, because like the orientation day thing, it's like I didn't know what my purpose was, and when you don't know what your purpose is, your dharma,
how did you find it? So how did you find your purpose? How did you come to this and say, okay, BRG, Bhakti Recovery Group, through all of that, you went through this, you went through that, you came to the Bhakti Recovery Group. And I'm not just saying because of the Bhakti Recovery Group, I'm just saying you came to a point in your life where the Bhakti Recovery Group came into play.
Yeah.
Here we are. What happened?
So lovely. I mean, because there's so many, like, it's the spiral staircase, you know, it's like,
oh, totally. There's so many layers and
I mean, at one point,
facets.
you know, I've seen so many beautiful views, honestly, from my spiral up. So it's not like, it's like I just keep uncovering, you know, the light. Whether
it's like a cornucopia of all kinds of recovery and spiritual programs.
I like the cornucopia because sometimes there's certain veggies you don't like in there, you know, maybe, or like
it's a good vision,
you know, but there's nourishment still, or like, you know, the spiral staircase of sometimes you're in the dark but then you come back around again. So for BRG, I think, you know, in the wake of my divorce, I'm just really digging really deep into like who am I, you know, and I kind of feel like I had already started to really define that. And I think yoga has helped me define that mostly. So that I got into teacher training in 2018. And one of my teachers was a bhakta. So she does practice bhakti. And she did have like sometimes these 200 hours will super skip over the Bhagavad Gita, you know, like that's not even like the studio that I teach at now doesn't even, I asked somebody who's doing the training, I'm like, do you guys have a Gita weekend? And she's like, what's that?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. So, but by the time I got to teacher training, I had done a shit ton of therapy, just to be frank, and had not quite gotten sober though. I was still drinking. 2018 early, I signed up. And it was just like the last little piece that I needed. I think it's like,
oh my God.
I don't believe you can just talk therapy your way to healing. I think you really, well, for me, let's just say that maybe some people have, I had so much body stuff.
Oh my God. Me too.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Me too. So much.
Or, you know, all that stuff. Nervous system. I still have to, like, I'm dysregulated all the time.
Oh, me too. The chakras are all over the place. It's like it's like a jigsaw puzzle.
It's a full-time
pieces
job
everywhere.
Grounded. So yeah, but yoga has been so powerful in my life in that regard. And 2018, I, you know, got my teacher training. I had an experience. I got my certification, and I had an experience of what I now realize was samadhi really early in that. And what I know now from one of my teachers is samadhi does come to us. Like we get sips of it, you know, it's like some of these masters have, you know, fully gone into samadhi. I've never done that before, but there's layers and levels of it from what I understand. And I truly felt this, like I said before, I never felt belonging. It was like all of a sudden, and every time I talk about this moment, I had come home from the first weekend of teacher training. I was still married, still living in the house, still living like by my programming, I would say, you know, just making choices based on like, well, if I get this house, I have this baby and I get married, you know, like all
filling that God-sized hole.
Yeah, all the externals, definitely. But I did have a God, you know, I wanted to believe in God from the time I was very little, and how desperately heartbreaking it was to actually leave Seventh-day Adventism and realize it wasn't the right path for me. It was really heartbreaking. I wished for many years that I could just embrace the religion of my upbringing and just be like so easy is what it felt like, you know, I could just be part of these people, you know, but I couldn't do it. But yoga really gave me this internal sense of belonging that I never had before. And, you know, that's really the beginning of my spiritual awakening, was that moment of like, wow, I have always been where I've always been held. This is just this sense of like, I've always been right where I needed to be. And I am here for a reason. I just knew it. And it was amazing. And I could tear up actually thinking about it. And I burst out laughing. I was like laying in bed next to my then husband, and I just burst, and I was deeply depressed. I burst out laughing, and he was like, what's so funny? And I was like, I have no idea. I
have no idea. I'm just going loony.
Just ecstasy, I guess. So, I mean, that was beautiful. And
I'm losing my material mind.
I mean, I belong I know. It was so great. And you know, ever incrementally that training really did start to refine and change my life. And then got sober on October 1st, 2018, which is the same month I graduated from the program of certification for yoga teachers. So it's very coincided. It's like
Oh, wow.
graduation for teacher training. I was wearing all white, and yeah, just what a special moment of just like rebirth, you know, at sober teacher now, like a purpose. I get chills. I mean, I'm like, and even then, Lo, I've come so far from 5 years ago, like how much I've had to kind of stay plugged into my recovery. Like it's not, I can't get complacent, which sounds maybe daunting to some who might listen and aren't sober yet. It's like, I remember feeling really daunted by the idea that like recovery might be forever, you know, like going
it's
to
forever, but
yeah.
only one day at a time. I'm always like,
well, it's one day
I
at a
heard,
time.
yeah, but when I heard that at first, I was like, fuck you. What do you mean one day at a time? I don't ever want to use again. You know, like I can't ever use again. What do you mean one day at a time? I just didn't get that at first.
It takes time. And even now, I think one day at a time is still one of the best little AA nomenclatures that there is.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just it is just there's
wait a minute. What did you just call it? A what? A
nomenclature? Isn't that the right?
That's
or like,
so cool. I've always wanted to know what the people call.
I hope I'm using it correctly.
Buzzwords.
There's a good chance I'm not, but
you keep speaking. I'm going to look it up. How do you spell it? Nomenclatures?
I don't know. Don't they have autocorrect nowadays? It's just NOM nomen.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check it out. All right. Go ahead.
I love words. That actually is very related to bhakti though. In Sanskrit is like the juice of the study of bhakti for me is just so exciting. I get so excited about it. So but
you're correct. It says the devising or choosing of names for things, especially in science or other discipline.
Well, words are my favorite. As I said, I love to write. I'm a writer, you know, I'm obsessed with words. So finding Sanskrit's important because that's like just the root of every word practically, you know? So it's such a beautiful language that I continue to have very little knowledge on, but I'm excited that I like lifelong journey of studying it.
So nice.
But I would say that it's important to say though, that 2018, we hadn't hit the pandemic just yet, you know? So it's like, I had this awakening, I'm sober, you know? And a big part of my sobriety, I think we should go back to that because we didn't really talk about like my drinking, but like, you know, I was kind of a gray area drinker for quite some time. I would say, you know, I could kind of dial it back, but then it would get kind of bad. You know, it would kind of ebb and flow. Yoga was a big part of keeping me falling off the edge, I think. Like,
nice. I mean, that's
you know how hard it is to maintain when you are actually an addict. Like you can't moderate in any calming, peaceful way.
No, definitely not.
Because you're thinking about it even when you're not. Like, oh my God, the 2018 training, I remember agonizing in Shavasana about whether I was going to stop at the liquor store.
On the way home.
This cracks me up. Like, oh my God, oh girl.
Alcohol induced Shavasana. They should make a vodka called Shavasana.
But you know how many yoga studios serve alcohol after Shavasana? A lot of them do.
No freaking way.
Lots of them. A lot of them do.
Insane.
Yeah, yoga and brew, that's a thing. I mean, that's a whole other side topic we could go down that I have feelings about, but
Shavasana vodka on the rocks.
Shots afterwards. One White Claw after your class. It's like,
Jesus.
I know, exactly. Jesus is the correct response. Well, and this is a good segue into what I was going to say, which is that I was starting to get really disillusioned with yoga. Well, I guess I was going to talk about my drinking journey just a little bit. And let's go back and talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go back just a tiny bit into like, you know, actually I felt like in high school kind of a good girl. Like I wasn't a druggie or like just full on getting tanked by the time I was in high school. I was really, like I said, trying to embrace. I was going to Bible. So I was driving myself to church and going.
You went to like a religious school, right? Like
yeah.
So
Adventist school. So Bible was a class I took every year of my entire life, for one thing. So I'm a biblical scholar.
I love that, man. I wish my parents did something like that to me. They were just
biblical scholar. Please know I'm saying that with like a little, like, not really. I mean,
yeah, but still, I mean, at
but
least
actually,
your parents, at least they
listen,
gave you something like that. Like I was like, basically, I came out of my mom's vajayjay, and then she was like, okay, you're on your own. Go figure it out.
well, time to get a job.
Yeah, totally. All right, so go ahead. Sorry about
Hilarious. Oh wait, what were we just saying?
that. So you were saying that you went to religious school
Oh.
and Bible study, and
I was driving myself to church. I was, I know it is a gift that my parents gave me. Honestly, it is a gift. Because I do have a real deep connection to devotion, and Jesus. Even I've come back around to Jesus in a real way. Honestly, that's different from what most people understand Jesus to be. I kind of say, like, I forget that in the West, he's a white kind of asshole, but sorry. Oh my God. I'm saying so many offensive things.
no, don't worry about it. You know what? I think we know what you mean. Well, at least I know what you mean.
I deeply
does not
revere.
mean she loves Jesus, and I know she does, and so do I.
It's just the deconstruction of Christianity that I think a lot of us need to do, especially deep seeking people. It was like, I got to dig deeper than this. But I was, as a teenager, as a person who started to identify and define myself in the world alone without my parents, I was going to church. I was seeking Bible studies. I had actually a spiritual religious teacher who I'm still connected with. His name is David Achata. I'm going to give him a shout out because he'll probably listen. Yeah, David was really influential in my early seeking. He was a college student when I was in high school, but he was in like the seminary. I guess, I don't know if that was what the Adventist called, like he was becoming a pastor.
Yeah, I think that's with everything, isn't it?
Okay.
Seminary. I mean, not in Bhakti,
universal
but
in all religion, or
yeah. Well, I don't know. No, that not in Bhakti, but in any like Judeo, Christian Judeo thing, it's seminary.
It's seminary, right? Okay, so he was going down that road,
I think.
and really, just I want to mention him because, like, when I think about and trace my steps back, it's like I was desperately seeking, and I was trying to find. I actually think I was really trying to find strong male figures in my life. I mean, that's a big theme. Never trusted men, and never really realized it either. So that's an interesting thing too, is how we can have something like, I don't trust someone, but not even be aware of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like now it's dissociation. It's just I've spent my life, not really maybe in my body all the time, or also just putting on my personas, just so disconnected from like who I really was. But, go into my journal all the time, and I see the early signs of like a woman, a girl, a soul who wanted God, who really wanted God. I want to also say too that, my parents did give me a lot of gifts. Like they poured into me in the external ways that you appreciate. It's like I had a lot of extracurriculars, which included, I learned how to play violin at a very young age. And that's,
you still play?
I still play, and only because of Bhakti. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but like I could cry. It's how I just feel I've returned to myself, as Bhakti has brought me back to so many beautiful
full circle
and parts. Yes, parts of myself. The first thing I ever said to my mother was "umi," which was this little word that wasn't it was a non-word word. I don't think I was even 2, and it was like when I would go to bed, she'd put me in the crib, and I would say "umi, umi," which meant music, and I wanted her to put my tape recorder on. I'm like, I came into this world being like, where's the Bhakti? Where's the Kirtan?
Yeah, that's so funny.
Seriously though, because music is a big part of my Dharma. I have a beautifully given ear as far as being able to hear and play back what I hear.
Oh, so that's fantastic. That's a good talent.
It's a gorgeous talent. And honestly, it's not a great talent to have when you're learning classical music, because you're supposed to learn music.
I know.
And it's like tedious as fuck. And you're like, oh God. But Kirtan is just, it comes directly from the soul, and I just am like able to feel that connection with Krishna. it's just wordless. I can't even describe it. So I feel so blessed, like humbly blessed when I'm in kirtan. But I felt kirtan till like 2021, like 2.5 years ago. And I'm like, the amount of change that that's brought to my life is incredible. Cause like, it's like, again, that spiral staircase I'm talking about, like, I already felt like I had this awakening. I was sober. Okay, but then the pandemic hit. So that's an important moment. 2020, I think, probably changed most people's lives in many ways. And for me, it was like the wake up call, I think, that I needed, or it was just like that upset that I needed. Because I really did think I was happy before the pandemic, and honestly really was living on autopilot. Trying to make a marriage work that had long since sort of not worked. My husband was a great man, wonderful guy. No one was hurting each other. Nobody was cheating. But I mean, we were hurting each other, like certainly emotionally. We never had the ability to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of love for him because he got me through some really hard times in my life. But when I went to start healing and growing, he just wasn't ready for that. He wasn't prepared or even interested in it. Maybe he didn't even need to do that kind of growing. Like I did. I had to save my own life. I had to go to therapy. I had to get sober. I would not be here,
Right.
So it ultimately came to the place where I realized surrender was going to look like divorce, which felt very, very anti to what my Adventist upbringing would say. It wasn't quite as strict as Catholicism, I think, with divorce, but it's not. I don't think even non-religious people, I think there's a stigma around not making a marriage work or broken homes.
Right.
It's hard. So 2020 hit, but here's the beautiful thing that happened for me in 2020 is that I met my teacher Bala. And you might know him, Balaram Chandradas.
I know of him, yes.
He lives in not Bend. He used to live in Bend. Now he lives in like outside of Ashland, Oregon. But he's a big part of why Bhakti has become a huge part of my life. Like, I mentioned my 2018 teacher was a bhakta, but really Bala coming into my life is what reconnected me to yoga in a way that was spiritual. That's what I was about to say, is that like prior to him coming, I was teaching and I was going to the yoga studios, yoga and beer afterwards. No, I wasn't drinking, but the yoga studios scene,
Shavasana vodka.
Yeah. The yoga studio scene started to become not aligned as much with me anymore. My practice, I wasn't looking for like hot power yoga anymore, even though that
so the yoga that you were familiar with at that time was not in lining with what your belief system or how you were growing.
Well, I always knew yoga had a deep philosophical study involved. Yes. I always knew that. And when I was doing my training, that's all I wanted. Was like when we had asana weekends, I was like, oh god damn, like let's just talk about, Sanskrit and philosophy. Like, let's talk about God. Yeah. Why are we here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Get to the meat. Yes. But that's when Bala appears in my life, and actually one of the things I used to say when, they say, set your intention for class and yoga. I used to say years ago, one of my only intentions I would say was find God, find God, find God.
I love that. And you know what I loved?
Yeah, go.
You know what I love? Listening to you, knowing that Bhakti, and this is what Bhakti does. And people don't understand. I think people think Bhakti is a religion in its own. It's actually just devotion, and it's actually just a path to anything. So Bhakti actually brought you back to the original love of God, and God has many faces. Now, okay, you choose to call God Krishna and you choose, whatever, but you also grew up with Jesus, and you grew up, in this very Christian family. And I think it's important for people to know that just because we practice Bhakti doesn't mean we have to give up believing that Jesus is God or Krishna is God, or, just take it easy. Let it unfold. Maybe you'll keep Jesus with you. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll, look, I just ordered an Our Mary of Seven, Our Lady of Seven Sorrows. She's on my altar now. I love her. It's Catholic. I know it's not in your Christian thing, but it's very, very Catholic. And I have such a love of that because of bhakti, not in spite of bhakti, but because of bhakti. Because now I know in which mood, in which rasa I want to love God. And sometimes it's like a mother. Sometimes it's like I love God like a mother with the pains of the mother. It's also like Mother Yashoda. There's not much difference. Queen Kunti, I had Mary tattooed my tummy when I was, I don't know, 22 or something. My dad almost had a heart attack. He's a Jew. He was like, what the hell? But these are the things. And bhakti, listening to you as well, tells me that bhakti is just something, not only just, let's say, if you practice being a Gaudiya Vaishnava, but there are people who use bhakti as a path to get back to their own religions. And that's what Prabhupada said. He said, I'm not here to make you believe in Krishna. I'm here to lead you back into the God that you forgot and to remind you of who you are and why we're here. Right?
Oh, I love everything you said. It's just giving me life. And I couldn't agree more. And I literally said my yoga practice, or now my bhakti practice, is what has helped me come back to the religion of my childhood. Like, to be able to even understand and what they were trying to say. It gives it a depth.
Right. The essence. Yeah, the essence of your religion. That's the essence.
The essence is there for sure. I mean, Adventists are even vegetarians. It's not quite the same. It's a little more like, again, so much more dogmatic, so much more like, they're also very much believing that like there's that like this is temporary. They're kind of apocalyptic really in many ways. I think they're like just waiting for the world to end at all times.
The 7-day Advent.
That's what it is. Is like, yeah, it came about from them, like a man who had like predicted the day Jesus would return, and then he didn't return. And then it's known now as the Great Disappointment in the Adventist Church. It's like a day in October that they talk about and commemorate. Like, we thought Jesus was coming and then he wasn't. It's kind of funny. Are you laughing? It's pretty hilarious.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing not at your religion, but I'm just laughing at the irony of that, because like if that's how we're going to practice things, it's like every day you wake up, it's a freaking disappointment. It's like,
it's so true.
A freaking here, like Jesus Christ.
Well,
but, it's different. When I was young, I remember going down to the train station. I grew up on the Upper West Side, and the first the subway station was 96th Street and Broadway. That time it was pretty messed up neighborhood, or very mixed. It wasn't messed up. It was just always very mixed neighborhood. And they would be on the corner. This was in the 70s. Or even in the early 80s or something maybe. And they used to scream on the corner, like literally scream, like I don't remember anything that they were saying, but I'm sure that it's evolved. That religion has evolved.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I dipped my toe back in. I still take my daughter to, like, they call it, they go to church on Saturday. That's the seventh day is the Sabbath, which is Saturday. So there's elements of that.
So it's Old Testament. It's like Old Testament oriented, right?
They're very Jesus oriented, though. They're all about the New Testament too. Actually, lots of New Testament, because they talk like lots of depth into like Revelations. Yeah. Okay, I took a class in college when I was still an Adventist called Last Day Events.
Oh, geez. What was on that list?
Yeah.
What was that? I got it.
I mean, I was heard from the time I was little. I was so instilled with fear from that regard too. It was like the judgment day is coming, and there's going to be beasts, and there's, just like.
Oh, Lauren, that's sad. I'm sorry. No, that makes me sad.
It is sad. And pretty much every Adventist I meet who is around, well, any Adventist I meet that's, within any range of age of me, that's what they were taught too. They were taught that we would, as
kids, you were taught that?
Like there's going to be a time when we're going to be persecuted, and that we're going to run for the hills. That's one reason why we learned our memory verses, not just for the joy, because like now you do slokas. That's like not just because the joy of learning slokas. Like that's the thing about bhakti, is it's just for the joy of it. Like that's what I feel like. It's just for the love of it. Like sing and dance, because that's how you feel joy. Adventists, no dancing. That's a sin. So that's another thing I had to relate to, is that, It's crazy.
I'm pretty ignorant because I didn't know that was that. I thought you were kind of like Pentecostal or something, but you're not. It's
No,
something totally
it's
different,
slightly
right?
different. I mean, honestly, I think Pentecostal, like sometimes I'm
Okay.
grateful for my Adventist religion because there's some cray stuff out there.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Like
And
I don't really know
Adventists
all
have
of it, like
progressed. I
because
want
I'm
to say,
like I
if
just
there anyone listening
Mhm.
that's an Adventist, I hope they don't think I'm dragging the church through the mud. And with any religion, there's
all
extremists,
there's
fanatic,
that.
and there's people who are wonderful,
Absolutely.
and just they understand God just the way that you do with bhakti, and it's beautiful. So yeah, it's all just interesting though. It's really interesting. I love it. Actually down in Alachua, I'll say this too, that that's the temple community that I've become the most familiar with, and I can talk about that just a little bit, but like down the
Are you
street,
coming down? Are you coming down in September? Are you coming?
maybe if I do have to bring my daughter, which would be lovely. And I actually have a family down there that offers me to stay there. So like I have
No. You can definitely stay in the house. I'm
okay, I love
staying.
that we're making plans on this
Yeah, let's
episode. All
let's
right.
on the live podcast, let's make some plans.
I'll DM you.
No, we'll talk afterward.
Side
Yeah,
chat,
okay,
side chat.
good.
I'm considering it like, yeah. So yes, but Alachua, oh my God, love that area. And I was going to say there's an Adventist camp right down the road from the temple.
No way. That's
Called
so
Camp
cool.
Kalakwa. And that was a big part of actually still trying to hang to my Adventist religion. Was after I graduated high school and college, I worked at a summer camp, not that one, but a summer camp just like that one, that was teaching people about Adventism and Jesus and all of that stuff. I was trying so hard. And then I mean, I don't want to go deep into it, but I had kind of a traumatic relationship with an Adventist boy.
Mm.
That I actually ended up losing my virginity to. I'll say that just because it's important, I think, to note that I've come to understand that moment in time was like I was re-traumatized. Like all the sexual stuff,
Yes.
abuse came to the
Yes.
surface at that. And that's really when I started numbing out. So to answer your question from a long time ago, like when did you start to really numb yourself? It was like then. It was after I had lost, like I'd been in this relationship with a man who was older, was very religious, very Adventist, which meant full of shame, unfortunately. I mean, not everyone, but like his particular understanding of God and lots of sexual repression, no sex before marriage, such a sin. So the fact that we engaged in that, caused him to feel, I was like Hester Prynne, honestly. I was like the Scarlet Letter, it was crazy. It was like the minute that we went there, and I wasn't that young. He wasn't that young. I mean, 22 and 19, he wasn't like you were 14 years old. And he reacted in a way that was like very shaming. Like it was like he rejected me afterwards.
What?
Yeah, heavy shit. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that.
I mean, it's like
I think it's just, I think it's a reflection of his guilty conscience. Had nothing to do with you. It had to do with him.
I know.
When he looks at you, he saw his own, his own conditioning,
his own
basically, and the
unresolved
things
shit.
that's wrong.
Yeah, I know it. But
some people might think when we're talking here, can I just say something? Some people might think that we're talking about that we're like just people who join one religion or who grew up in one religion, ditch that religion, go to another religion, that people think they're just like cult hopping or,
it does
but,
kind of
there's
appear
another,
that way.
It kind of appears that way, but if you really think about it, it's not. You know what it is? Yeah. It's that we're looking for a way to love God, looking for the most healthiest, most relatable way to love God. And there are going to be terrible things about organizations and great things about organizations. And don't frickin' tell me for 1 second that there's not any system that's not corrupted. The only good system is a sound system. But the only good system,
true.
Right?
Yeah.
The only system when you have fallible humans running it, whether it's a religion, whether it's politics, whether it's a company, whether it's a family, there's dysfunction and greed and ego and all those tasty little, horrible little rotten treats that we get here in the material world. And it's riddled with it. So no, it's not religion hopping. And no, it's not trying to like being brainwashed. It isn't like that. It's like the true seekers of the true love of God that some of us have and need it in recovery and looking for that. And some of us become dogmatic because we have to. And I feel dogma has a lot to do with fear and insecurity.
Yeah.
And I believe
control.
that, and yeah, and it shouldn't be hated. Nothing should be hated. Nothing should be hated. No religion should be hated. None of it. And I know a lot of people who I grew up with who hate religion. And I understand why.
Well,
I understand why.
Like it is like, even I had a teacher and a yoga teacher actually tell me once, do you know Nikki Myers? She's the 12th yoga, like 12 YSR.
I do know her. I mean,
Anyway,
amazing what she did. You know what my only problem was with that?
yoga is yoga.
So
It's
sensitive
yoga.
about voices. No, it's just that her voice. I took her took her online course, and I had to turn it off because her voice was hurting my ears. I couldn't take the tone of her voice. It's such a shame because she had wonderful things to say.
She does. I took a workshop with her in person. So maybe in person it's not quite as like confronting as in like a audio format, but at any rate,
it was very much hurting my ears.
Also, I have just a little issue, not with her at all, but just in general with people that take yoga and like brand it themselves into some kind of trademark. I'm like, it's just, it's for everybody. And it's not, and like yoga is already a recovery model. So it's like already recovery. Yeah. I don't want to like talk shit on her though, because she does have some amazing stuff. Like I took a codependency weekend from her. It was called Breaking Barriers. And she talk about not a lot of people sign up for that yoga workshop. I think they're
not a lot of people signed up.
Well, there was a good amount of people. She's got quite a following. I mean, but then that's the weird thing too with yoga. It's like, do you want to follow? And it's like, we're kind of trying to develop hearts of service, which she does. But what I was going to say, I was going to quote what she said was that we incur just as much trauma from our culture as our upbringings, like our parents.
Oh my God, yes.
Have to hold that accountable as much as the caretakers that we had. Because that's what, we're raised on. I was raised on like the Today Show and like my parent, it's like Regis and Kathy Lee and
oh my God, those
malls and movies and
Regis
like,
and Kathy
I
Lee.
know, right? Regis and going to restaurants is a thing.
Ew.
Just like my life was so superficial, really, and but yet I was like, where's the meat? Where's the depth?
Where's
So really, I mean, that's not good segue into Bala, because I was going to go back to that. When he showed up in my life, he helped me with the disillusionment. Like I said, find God. And, Warrior 1, Warrior 2, Warrior 3 wasn't working anymore. And Lululemon yoga pants and all of the like
Lululemon yoga pants.
I mean, they're great yoga pants. I'm not gonna lie, they make your butt look really good, but they're so expensive.
It's why we're doing yoga, to make our butts look good. That's
absolutely
really sad.
No, actually, my favorite quote is, we don't do yoga to get a tight ass, it's to pull your head out of it.
Oh, I love that. That's a good one.
Pull your head out of your ass. I think I'm paraphrasing that one, but okay. So Bala comes into my life, and it's interesting because it was a workshop that was, my life looked like married, kids. I was working as a yoga teacher. I was kind of bored, honestly, and I don't think I was really engaging in my life as much as I was on autopilot, is what I would say. And Bala comes in. The workshop was marketed as an Ayurvedic study or an Ayurvedic weekend. And I want to say that just because, just like yoga in the West is only known, I think, as a physical practice, Ayurveda, I think, also is only known as like a diet plan. At least in yoga, that's all I knew of it. Sadly.
Oh my gosh, yeah, of course. But that's how it's like marketed.
And a lot of women yogis have taken, the elements of like, the food elements, But so I was like, well, I don't want to learn about Ayurveda. Like, I don't care about a diet right now. I was so ignorant. It's like, the first thing you start talking about is Dharma. And I'm like, well, how is this related? And I'm like, oh, no, Ayurveda is just like such a deep, vast study that's about the elements and how we're all made up of that. And, we are the
Gigantic.
universe. We are the universe in ecstatic motion. No,
That's why
didn't.
actually I would never practice Ayurveda, because it's a commitment. It's like a whole commitment of everything.
Well, it is.
Like,
It's very
and
vast.
like, I can't, like, I couldn't, like, it's like basically serving your body and serving everything at what it's a huge, it's too big for me.
Well,
And I'm not going to do it little.
We didn't talk about food.
Anyway,
like,
God,
not
that's
even
another.
once did we talk about food.
Yeah.
Like,
Anyway, that's another. Yeah.
It was
That's
Dharma.
That's another.
Yeah. And it was purpose. And it was like, oh, this, and it just clicked all of a sudden. And from that moment, I, just to kind of speed it up, is that I've followed Bala he does Monday. Well, he did at the time, Monday night Bhagavad Gita studies every Monday on Zoom. So I joined his Sangha, which is like an online community of people, back at 2020. And then the pandemic hits, like right when Bala comes. I did this workshop. It was early March of 2020. I did a consult with him. He gave me so many great kind of little tips. And one of the tips he gave me was every morning he basically was like encouraging me to establish a relationship with nature, to establish a relationship with the sun, with the elements, get up, watch the sunrise if you can, build a fire if you can, these things that I started doing. And the pandemic hit, and it was like, I could get up and make a fire every morning, watch the sunrise. And that's when I started doing Artist Way, which, I don't even know if we had a lot of time to go into, but it's something I still continue to do as a recovery process. And I take people through the process. And it's 12.
So you coach people. So you coach people through the Artist's Way.
Yes, I've done it in group settings. I've started doing it one-on-one with people. And so much of that is a kind of process. I call it creative awakening, because it's a process of acknowledging that there's a source always around us, always.
Nice.
And of course, it's called the Artist Way. So you kind of think, oh, making art. And yeah, some people want to make art with a capital A, but I have come to understand this process is really about being an active participant in your life, and realizing every single choice we make is creative. We're co-creating with Julia Cameron calls it the great creator, but I mean, all the kinds of euphemisms for God, source. Julia Cameron, by the way, is the author of The Artist Way. She's also a woman who's like 30 plus years sober in recovery. So her materials are wonderful. Her books, I've gone through the process with people for 3 years now, and I still find things, just like in the Gita. It's like, you're just still going to find like gems in there. I mean, Gita's.
I've heard a lot of good stuff.
Way, but
I've heard a lot of good stuff about Artist Way. I've never done it.
So honestly, just to kind of fast track it, just saying like that process, I think, is the reason why I've deeply uncovered my meaning and purpose in life, because I've actually getting up and engaging with my life instead of piloting. And unfortunately, a divorce had to happen. And I do believe that was what I needed in order to align spiritually.
Yes.
But
same for me. Sometimes you just need a purification and a new start. And it's unfortunate, also in the Bhakti tradition and also in your Christian tradition, I would imagine that, divorce is like the big no.
Yeah. It definitely feels a little like I, come around, I'm the divorced lady now, whatever. But right as my divorce was happening.
And you have a cat.
I have a cat.
Oh,
that's a requirement. It's a requirement. At least I don't have 10 of them. So, but
is the cat chill now? Has he chilled on the catnip, or is she
doing okay? She's in the windowsill. I think she's a Vaishnava.
Oh, thank God.
I think she's a Vaishnava because she comes over to my harmonium when I play and is like riveted. And then last night or 2 nights was Janmashtami, and I was reading my daughter the story of Krishna's appearance, and she was like staring at me riveted. I was like, I swear she's a Vaishnava. Like she's got some karma or something. We're spiritually connected. But what was cool, I'd say, in just kind of the final thing is like where I'm at now. The last couple of years have been so hard, but then Bhakti has just been my lifeline. And I've been blessed to find Bala lives out west, but I still connect with him all the time through his like online teachings. But he comes here a lot. He'll be here at the end of the month here in Chattanooga. I saw him in Kansas last summer. And like everyone that he's kind of studies with him has become like, it's just weird. We're like, it's Sangha. So it's just like family. It's like recovery people, you meet people that are deeply on the path of Bhakti and there's just a soul connection. And you probably have done this before together is what it feels like, it's like, oh, we're like,
that's what they say, doesn't it? Isn't it that what that's what our tradition talks about?
I mean, I was joking. It felt like I went to this place in Kansas, like random. Bala has this group of people that study with him out in Kansas. And I flew out there to be with him and study. And it just felt like a family reunion. And I like met basically nobody other than just through Zoom calls. So it was cool. And that experience happens for me in recovery too. But I've been blessed to have Bala start our Kirtan circle. So in Chattanooga, we have Kirtan that happens every week. Tuesday nights, it's free to the community. And I've been doing that since day one, which is, or it started early in 2021.
Nice.
And one of the guys that keeps that going, and actually within that kind of Kirtan circle, there's like a little Sangha that meets and studies the Gita on Sunday nights. And I was a part of that. His name is Chaitanya. He's his last name's Harper. I'm not sure if you would know him, but he and Bala were actually
I do not
in the ashram together back in the day, as they say. But like what I would say too, just sort of to wrap it all up, is like these men really have come into my life, these men that are pointing me to God. And that's what I've been looking for, even back when I had that relationship that traumatized me and I, left the church because of that. He was doing Bible studies with me, it's like, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a man to guide and protect me, and yet just experienced so much betrayal there. And so of course I wouldn't really believe in, a good, like that a man could really be of substance was like,
well, of course. I mean, to happen with your dad. I mean, that just sounds like, like you just take that copy paste.
And really, so anyway, ultimately I'd say Bhakti, it's like Bala comes into my life. This Chaitanya comes into my life. Chaitanya has introduced me to so many people in the Bhakti world, like Gauravani is a friend of his. And I'd mentioned I'd gone down to Krishna House and Advaita Acharya and his wife, Kalindi. Like I actually have been kind of amazed at the men that have come into my world who have really helped me heal that part of myself.
So you feel safe around these?
Yeah,
I feel you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, some of these men I've been guarded around and had to, incrementally let the guard down. But ultimately, I trust all of these men I'm speaking of because they point me to God, like it over and over again. It's that I'm looking for, and certainly can say, that I've been a love addict and all of those things because you're seeking that. And so men who point you in that direction, for me, is like the ultimate healing. I've needed that. I need the peace I needed so badly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So when we wind this up, I want to ask you one question. What looks like the perfect spiritual recovery day for you? How would that?
Oh my goodness. It would definitely include nature, like probably almost entirely it would be nature, but it would start in the morning with japa and kirtan. I love kirtan. And that has been such a transcendent practice for me. It has changed me, has given me a clearer expression of myself. They say it wipes the mirror of the heart. I mean, I've experienced that because I get to do it over and over, and it's such a service. So I get to watch other people transform too. I've seen so many people come to Kirtan who are just like, oh my God, what is this? And then after a year of coming are just like leading, and they're, they are who they're meant to be. They're unabashedly, connected with their spirit.
And then
so it's such a beautiful practice. But So Japa Kirtan, but then we're going to go outside. I mean, I guess we're
Nature.
picturing this is a day. Maybe we're in Alachua. I mean, honestly, like my absolute favorite thing is rivers and water. So probably going down a river in Alachua nearby. It's not in Alachua, but it's like 40 minutes outside. Have you ever been down the Itchy Tuckney?
I've never been there before. I've been to like my grandmother used to live in Florida because we're Jewish, of course. So my
Okay.
grandmother, she was like down there in like Fort Lauderdale,
like South Florida,
like,
though, right?
Yeah, like Fort Lauderdale, and not the.
Well, I was like, Alachua is a little gym because it's untouched,
I know.
And
Well, I haven't been there yet. I'll be there the first time.
Oh, wait, you've literally never been to Alachua?
No, never, ever, never, ever. So.
Oh, I'm totally coming. Yeah. So last year, just quick, I got to go to Jamastomy in Alachua, this little sangha that I'm talking about. We all went as a group and it was so sweet. It was a little soul family. And then we also went for the Festival of Holy Name in November. And then I took myself back to Alachua this year, like 3 or 4 other times. It's about a 6-hour drive. So it's like,
That's so bad. Yeah.
Also divorced, and I have my daughter every other weekend. So that's hard, actually. So it's like filling it. Really what I've done in this wake of divorce.
I'm sorry, we've squirreled.
Oh, but you said, what's your perfect day? And I was spiritual day. I was going to say, I mean, getting out of my divorce was so that I could engage with my spiritual practices so much, so getting out of my marriage rather. But yeah, the reason we squirreled was because I was like picturing myself in Alachua on this day.
Yeah, I know. I saw that squirreling.
So that's what I'm going to go, since this is a fantasy question anyways, let's just say my perfect day would be I'm in that area and I go to the temple in the morning and do, Mangala Arati and all the things. And then go down the river, which the Itchy Tuckney is a spring-fed river. It's blue, like crystal blue. You've never seen such blue water. It looks like it's the Krishna River.
Wow.
And there's manatees.
Oh my gosh.
Amongst other amazing wildlife, but the manatees are not typically out in the summer. So you kind of have to go in the winter, which I did in January and February, and it's still moderately tempered. It's temperatures, it can get kind of cold in Alachua because it's not South Florida, but this is my perfect day is, temple, japa, kirtan, friends are going down the river together.
Is a BRG meeting in there?
Definitely. I mean, I love going to meetings. I'm going to go to the meeting today. There's a BRG meeting in there. I mean, I kind of feel like when you're connected with all of that, a meeting is almost like when you don't have that available. But like if I had a day all day where I just to get to be outside, that feels just like a full-on meeting. You know what I mean? That's just an all-day meeting.
That's fantastic. Love that.
Yeah. So, good food, good friends, really good, deep conversation, water, I love nature. I'm a very active girl. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. So why don't you just, before we wind up, also just let people know where they can get in touch with you. If what Lauren's, experience, strength, and hope, if that's resonated with you and you'd like to know more about Lauren or get a yoga teacher, get yoga classes from Lauren or coaching, please, Lauren, let us know, and we'll also put it in the show notes. But please tell the people where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I think the best place right now is I do finally have a website published, which I built this year, and it's www.thesourcerecovery.com. But Source Recovery is the name of my business. And I'm sure you can kind of understand why, because I just firmly believe that if we're recovering from anything, it's the connection with our higher power that is the key. It's the ultimate key. Surrender and Bhakti and recovery give us the steps to do that, like the framework for that. So
thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much for coming. This was a great talk. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope people can get something from Lauren and from this talk, because that's why we're here. We're here to serve. We're here to share experience, strength, and hope that we can reach anyone. And I would looking forward to this journey with you, Lauren, and to have, contact with you and have association and friendship with you. And Yeah, and that's it. So I wish everybody a great day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are, whenever it is. Okay. Haribol.
Haribol.
This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and/or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again. This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and/or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.